Thank you. You're very kind. Hello, I'm Andrew Coder, graduate of Clemson University, and I'm here to give you a short TED Talk about the issue of overpopulation in our world today. This morning, I took a quick shower. I decided to hop in for 5 minutes at temperature 72 degrees. It's really warm outside, so I thought it was no big deal until somebody took this picture of me. And then I started thinking, this is no big deal, it's just a quick shower, right? Well, unfortunately, that's very much the opposite. The world is becoming very, very overpopulated. In the year 1804, there were 1 billion people. 120 years after, there were 2 billion people in the year 1927. 33 years after that, 3 billion. You can see how this is starting to accumulate and grow very quickly. And then 4 billion was hit in 74, and 5 billion in 1987. That's 13 years after. And then 6 billion was hit 12 years after that. Today, the world's population is slightly over 7 billion people. As a result, population growing at a tremendous rate. Countries that are already very much populated are becoming way overpopulated. This is leading to issues such as waste management, water shortage. And another issue we have to talk about is where this growth is occurring. Unfortunately, as we see in this graph coming up, low and middle income countries are averaging 2.9 children per mother as of the year 1999. You can see that the growth is starting to slow down. However, it is still very high. In sub-Saharan Africa, one of the poorest areas in the world, there are currently 5.3 children per mother. This is an extremely high rate. Again, not compared to 1980, but this is the 1999 stat in pink. Whereas on the other side over here, you have some of the more developed countries who are able to sustain large amounts of children, such as Eastern Europe, Central Asia, and other high-income countries, such as America, Canada, and the like. This could eventually cause further issues, such as children not having enough education to do what they need to do. They won't get anywhere. And, of course, as we mentioned many times before, water is a huge issue here. Pause it. Right. And when the numbers are crunched from this graph alone, it actually turns out that by the year 2025, just 11 years from now, the world's population will be at over 9 billion people. This is an extreme amount of people. And to think that we can barely support the amount of people there are today, could you imagine what happens here? And as this graph shows also, this is the population in billions by country. You have the least developed countries at the top. They make up about, I'd say, 2 billion people, about the same as the more developed countries. However, as you can see, this is growing much more exponentially than the more developed countries. In the middle, you have the lesser developed countries, not completely undeveloped as up there, but still, this issue is growing rapidly as we see. Ideally, there would be more blue than green on this map, but as we can see, the blue is simply not growing fast enough. It has stayed almost steady since the year 1950, and is projected to stay steady until the year 2050. While over here in the less developed countries, it has soared exponentially. Almost 6 billion people added since then. So the issue here is that you have uneducated people in undeveloped countries. This could lead to further and further overpopulation issues, including further impacts such as shortage of water, food, etc., all of which have been listed before. So what happens is that you have these kids born in these undeveloped nations, and they decide to go to more urban areas. That's where the whole movement is today. Tons and tons of people are moving to these urbanized areas. However, these urbanized areas are very, very poor. That's another problem. They're simply called squatter settlements, and they're just a bunch of huts set up really close to each other, and they try to sustain themselves by keeping water in a very close area, food very close to them, and all that other things. Crime rates here are very high. The poverty rates here are very high. And as we see by this upcoming graph, the global water consumption between years 1900 and 2025 have gone up exponentially. In 1900, we were using about 550, I'll say, billions of gallons per year cubed. However, as of the year 2010, we were using close to 4,000 billions of gallons a year cubed. And it's projected to go up to nearly 5,000 within 15 years of 2010. It's the year 2025. This is an exponential growth. And we have to realize 1% of the world's water, just 1%, we can drink. This is obviously a huge issue because of how fast it'll come back to us and how many people could actually die from it. As we see from this presented graph, the lower and middle income countries tend to have a much higher birth rate than the high income countries. And of course, the lower income countries tend to be less educated than those on the other side. Our group feels that perhaps maybe it's direct correlation to each other, that the lower income and less educated countries tend to have more children, while on the other hand, we have the high income countries having less children. So we decided the best method of overpopulation control is actually through education. Our goal is to simply go around and send people to these underdeveloped countries, such as sub-Saharan Africa, as we see here, with the highest birth rate. We will send people such as missionaries or hopefully volunteers to go out there and talk to these people about perhaps proper family planning, how to save money, and so that these issues don't arise further later on. And as we see in this upcoming slide, when given an international test, we have some of the higher scoring countries over here and in Europe with the lower birth rates, while you have the African countries and all over here with the highest birth rates tend to score lower. Again, a direct correlation. We think that if this method is not effective, which we highly doubt it will be, because, again, history seems to repeat and these statistics seem to repeat. But if by any means it is not effective, we might have to have government intervention. That means taxing and cutting off life support and just about anything else for anybody who has excess children. For example, the one-child policy in China. Of course, this is not reasonable. We do not plan to implement this directly. However, overpopulation is becoming a severe issue. And if people decide not to listen to what we have to say, I mean, it's going to have to happen sooner or later. Again, the issue of squatter settlements comes up. And actually, we feel that a squatter settlement will actually be a better opportunity for education. People will be closely together. They won't have to walk for, say, miles upon miles to go hear some guy talk about family education, family planning, which I really do not think many people would like to do. However, instead of walking, say, 20 miles, they could actually walk close to 1 mile, maybe half a mile in these squatter settlements, and they could hear one person talk. Also, that one person can impact, say, 1,000 people instead of 10 at one time, not having to repeat himself and all that. Also, this education will be passed down from generation to generation to generation. You have the parents who will be hearing this, or planning to be parents, and when they have, say, 2 children, those 2 children will hear. And it's just going to keep going down and down the list. And hopefully, as parents begin to tell their children more and more, the growth will slow down as well, and it will become stable, ensuring that water and waste management and everything in between stabilizes with it. And hopefully we can get some governments on board, and with the proper funding from MEGS, we can help further this idea that we have. And hopefully in the end, we will have a more stable planet and a better solution in the end. Thank you. Have a good day.